contest page and register for your chance to win a pair of passes to an early screening of the new Prime Video movie One Fast Move, in an action-adventure thrill ride about a young man down in his luck working towards his dream of being a motorcycle racer. That's KFAN.com keyword contest to enter.
JB Long is into his 9th season calling Rams games, and JB has called 2 Super Bowls, including a Super Bowl 56 victory at SoFi over Cincinnati, and our Friends on Foes finale hits on Minnesota's Week 8 opponent, a Thursday night contest versus the LA Rams at SoFi. And JB joins us now. What's going on? It's PA in charge. Thanks for helping the radio show, and good having you on. How are you?
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Good to be connected with you. And, I remember the last time we got together for Thursday Night Football, it was a thriller. That was at the Coliseum, and it went the Rams' way. But looking forward to hosting you again at SoFi this October.
Yeah, that's the Jared Goff that night, JB. He threw a perfect game. I mean, it's that perfect passer rating. It's the only perfect passer rating the Vikings have ever faced in the history of the franchise. And, that there were things with the defense that night where we ended up with Anthony Barr trying to run with Brandon Cooks and like trying to cover Cooper Kupp and stuff. And the Coliseum was being remodeled, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was the start of something special. Don McVay 2018 team, and as you referenced, it culminated in the Super Bowl. That was the first one that I had the privilege of being a part of, but it's kind of like the old tree falling in a forest. If your team doesn't score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, did you really go to the Super Bowl? So glad that they redeemed that with their SoFi Super Bowl against the Bengals a couple years back.
And that was Kevin O'Connell's and Wes Phillips and Chris O'Hare and on. It was Tyler Williams. It was their final year with the Rams. They're all here now, plus some more. But JB, what is it like calling a Super Bowl win?
Well, it's kind of a transcendent, out-of-body experience, especially when it's in such familiar territory. I mean, in our home stadium, in a different radio booth, in your home environment, but in a kind of a neutral corporate Super Bowl type feel, without all the elements that you're used to. So it's at once familiar, but also foreign. I think what was so special about that particular run in the 2021 season is, externally it was known as an all-in campaign. And I think that really orbited around the career of Aaron Donald, who had done everything as a professional football player, especially a defensive football player, that one could do save for win the ultimate prize. And for him to get the game-clinching pressure both in the NFC Championship game against Garoppolo and the rival 49ers, and then to, in essence, do it again against Burrow and the Bengals, I mean, that's the equivalent of a walk-off grand slam in Game 7 of the World Series for a defensive tackle. Like, think about all the stars that had to align for that to happen. And so as much as I enjoyed it personally and for our organization, I think I'll always remember that as Aaron Donald's signature moment in a Hall of Fame career.
JB Long is the radio voice of the Los Angeles Rams. JB, Paul Charchian, nice to meet you. Let's bring it up to current. You mentioned Aaron Donald. The Rams defense now doesn't have the star power of the ones that we had seen previously. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd. I mean, these, they were like these signature players. On the outside, it looks like kind of an anonymous group. What do you think is the state of the defense for the Rams right now?
Yeah, here's something I didn't expect to be able to say early in the month of August, and that is I think the Rams up front have a chance to be pretty stout, to be pretty good. I always think, and I think everyone should think, of rush and cover in tandem. And what I'm more curious about, maybe even concerned about, is how the back end of the Rams defense is going to give some of those pass rushers an opportunity to influence the opposing quarterback. The Rams have invested in that defense, anticipating and then realizing the loss of maybe the greatest defensive player they've ever had. And so whether it's, through the draft, making sure that they loaded up a year early at the edge position with someone like Byron Young, Kobe Turner on the interior, who was very deserving of the defensive rookie of the year votes he got last year, and then doubling down on that investment with their top 2 picks of this draft. Jared Verse out of Florida State was one of their favorite defensive targets. He's their first-round draft pick since Jared Goff back in 2016, as many of you know. And then his teammate at Florida State, they would have loved to have had at the end of day one. Like if they could have got back into that first round to take Braden Fisk, I think they would have done that. They paid a high price to get up in round 2 to take him. And that was kind of graded as one of the biggest overpays of the draft if you're looking at your board. But I think given how highly they thought of him as a pairing to bring out the best in his Florida State team, and I think they're really excited about what they have there.
I'm interested in the almost Lazarus story of wide receiver Demarcus Robinson. His career appeared to be over until the Rams made a late acquisition last year, and then eventually finds his way into the starting lineup. And then he was a big contributor for the Rams down the stretch last season, had a bunch of shockingly productive games despite Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp being there. And Demarcus Robinson extending his career in a meaningful way with the Rams.
Yeah, I think a couple of things to note there. One is he's never been in playoffs. And, as a receiver, you can only do so much. And he's fortunate to have played with some great franchises in Kansas City and Baltimore, and especially some really good quarterbacks, MVP caliber quarterbacks in both of those places. And I would argue that Matthew Stafford had his best season as a pro last year with DeMarcus, who he scored touchdowns in like 4 straight games in that stretch run you're talking about, and was a perfect complement to Puka Nacua in that record-setting season, and Cooper Kupp, who was kind of playing on one wheel. Tutu Atwell is the 4th member of that receiving room, and he was a bit wounded down the stretch, and that created the opportunity for DeMarcus to step right into, and especially in the red zone, I think he was a true weapon, and he's only going to continue to build on that. I think the people that I've talked to around the Rams building are super excited about the potential he still has at age 29. And let's face it, Matthew has always been a kingmaker in this league, right? Whether it was Megatron or Cooper Kupp's Triple Crown season, like when he finds a rapport, he will continue to go at avoid opposing defenses. And if your third best defensive back is aligned over the top of Demarcus Robinson, like you'll have to be most days when you play the Rams, that's going to be an option that Matthew continues to pick on, I think, with great success in 24.
Hey, JB, what do you remember about Kevin O'Connell when he was the offensive coordinator there?
I've always just enjoyed his enthusiasm and his spirit. He's really pleasant to be around. There was a moment in that Super Bowl run, though, that was captured on, I can't remember exactly what mic'd up video it was, but if you kind of search the NFL Films Archive, I think it's indicative, where Sean McVay, who is clearly the architect and the play caller and has his fingerprints all over the game day operation, on the touchdown that was a critical point in the game, basically turns and gives immediate credit to Kevin. And that was insightful for me, even being around much as I am. That was as much immediate credit for a play call that I've ever seen Sean give. Now, I want to be clear. Sean is the ultimate deflect all praise, name drop every assistant coach he can in every soundbite. But it was just such an instinctive reaction where he knew exactly where that critical bit of guidance came from, and it was Kevin O'Connell right at the end of his tenure before he became the head coach of the Vikings. And I think that colored my understanding of that hire and how well it could work in Minnesota. I'm not surprised that it's been good so far, and if they can get the quarterback right, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think it's even better.
Now, JB does the weekly Sean McVay show. What's it like working with Sean, who is brilliant?
Yeah, I think he's a force of nature, and I've often said this, that given everything I just said about his offensive prowess, I've always thought he could just as easily go coach defense. I think he just has a complete understanding of the sport and appreciation for it. But I think most importantly is he's a people person. He is an elite communicator. I think if you asked him to take on any new field, be it education or medicine or law or, heaven forbid, politics, like Sean would rise to the top so quickly because of his engine, because of his desire, because of his process and work ethic, but most importantly because he is that person who can walk into a room and make you feel seen. He's got that incredible recall for names, not just play calls, but like names and then the story about you that goes with your name that I think leaves you feeling enlightened and important and that he is a real ally. And so it's not surprising to me in retrospect that coming in as the youngest coach in the league, he could get someone like Andrew Whitworth on board with what he was trying to do, that he could win over Aaron Donald, who was rightly skeptical, right? And that he had the immediate success that he did. But more than immediate success, sustained success, because he's been able to evolve as a play caller, as a head coach, and as a person to get into this second book, not just second chapter, but second book of his career.
I remember when longtime Vikings center John Sullivan finished his career in Washington, and when Sean McVay got hired, we were all like, my guys, he's so young. And Sullivan was like, whoa. Do not doubt this guy. He is incredibly special, and you watch, he's going to be great. And Sullivan ended up being correct, and Sean McVay ended up being obviously having an amazing career so far. JB, I drilled down on your wide receiver depth chart with Demarcus Robinson earlier, but let's go to the A topic. Puka Nacua coming off one of the greatest rookie seasons by any receiver in the history of the game. What's your expectations for his sophomore year?
Yeah, if I could just dovetail off your John Sullivan comment real quick.
Yeah.
I'm a Notre Dame guy. I've always liked him. I was really thrilled when I got a chance to work with him in 17-18, and he said it as well as anyone. I remember training camp coming back for his second season. I asked him, like, John, is Sean McVay really worth points on game day? And he was like emphatic, like, yes, he's worth a field goal to a touchdown per game from the sideline. So I always thought that was great perspective from someone who sees it as well as anyone.
Well, JB, off the Notre Dame vibe, sorry to clump on you there, but when the Vikings come out to SoFi for Thursday Night Football, you got to fist bump Harrison Smith. I mean, this could be his final year, and I don't know if he was Irish immortality, but he's borderline HOF here.
Oh, no, he's a made man, no doubt. And he was a great player there, but I think a lot of the West who, follows the Golden Domers into the next phase have really enjoyed what he's been able to do there in Minneapolis. So his sustained success has been terrific. And we hope that Puka can build off of that rookie season. Statistically, I don't think anyone is banking on him to put up the numbers that he did as a rookie. And I think it might actually be a sign of health for the Rams if he doesn't have to. Yeah. Because what he really did is thrive in Cooper Kupp's absence. I mean, he got a crash course in McVay and Stafford 101 because Cooper was sidelined for the offseason program. And so his growth curve was accelerated, and then he took every bit of advantage from week one forward and never looked back. So the knock on him was, health concerns, and he played all 17 games plus a playoff game. The knock on him was that he was more of a zone beater and couldn't run away from man coverage. He torched every opportunity that he had. He led the league in drops if you're looking for maybe an area of growth, but you have to be pretty darn good. You have to be pretty special to lead the NFL in drops, I've always thought. So that's almost a testament to the season that he put forward. And look, we really have not seen the fullest fruition of him playing alongside Cooper Kupp. Like, Cooper just was not himself last year. And so even when they were on the field together, it was almost more of a decoy action than a true tandem. And I like to refer to those guys as, like, what do they call Deebo Samuel, a wide back? I think of these guys as more like, tight receivers. Like, they do so much more than just catch passes. They fit into the running game. They fold into the blocking surface. And you have to look for that on game day to fully appreciate how special they are.
All right, last one for the Rams VOX JB Long into his 9th season calling Rams football. He's already called 2 Super Bowls, and the Vikings take on the Rams week 8. It's a Thursday night football game after the Vikings play the Lions. So you get a physical game against the Lions, a short week with some travel to play the brilliant McVay. That sounds good enough to eat. Charge?
Well, let's go to, really, when I look at your depth chart, JB, the thing that can happen that derails your season is, it looks to me like Matthew Stafford. If something were to happen to Matthew Stafford, you're going into Stetson Bennett and something called Dresser Win. That feels like a worst-case scenario.
Yeah, it's going to be a 2-week bridge until Jimmy Garoppolo comes off of that short suspension. And
that's right.
Stafford, and I think that's, it's definitely a 2-week risk that they understood they were signing up for. But I think given his fluency in the Shanahan-McVay verbiage and system, it was a calculated risk they were willing to take. And let's face it, this, like so many franchises are, but especially the Rams, this season goes as far as Matthew Stafford can take them. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is a higher floor, maybe than they had last year, with like Brett Rippon, who had to play middle of the season at Green Bay in a loss, and eventually they got onto Carson Wentz, who won them a Week 18 game at San Francisco. But Stafford at his 16th season and deep into his 30s is extending his prime. And I think as long as he has his health and Sean McVay's his play caller and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, he's going to be able to continue to put up big numbers. I truly believe that last year was his best season. Now, I know that he's won a Super Bowl, but when you talk about his big play potential and the way that he also curbed his turnover-worthy plays, I still can't believe this in retrospect, but he did not fumble last year. He did not put a ball on the ground in the pocket last year, which is staggering, as much as he drops back. So I'm really excited about this year partnership with McVay and with Cooper Kupp having a full offseason. I think Stafford can take it even to a next level.
Hey, JB, thanks for the time, man. And we'll see you down the road. And great work on the radio, man. Have a great summer, all right?
Yeah, big-time admirer of yours as well, and I'm looking forward to that Thursday night football contest. I hope there's some big stakes.
I appreciate you, brother. See you later. JB Long, Vox for the LA Rams. When 9 to noon continues, Gabe Henderson with the Vikings Entertainment Network joins PA in charge, and we will all be feasting on the fan.
Minnesota-based Hammer-Made shirts are meant to help you look your best at any special occasion. And now through August 4th, they're holding their halftime sale with up to 50% off in savings. Check it out now at hammermade.com. And to give you a head start on your shopping, we've got a $100 Hammer-Made gift card for caller number 11. 800-320-5326. Call those digits.
What's up, Gabe Henderson? How you been?
PA, I am doing well as always, and always good to physically see you in person.
Likewise, and you rolled in with that Barry White voice this morning, and we greatly appreciate that. So the Raiders, 8 days from today, and a lot of the focus is going to be, at least radio-wise or media-wise, is is Darnold going to get any reps, going to play 10, 15, 20 snaps, whatever? How long will J.J. McCarthy play, and so on? Well, let's not forget for the adversary. I mean, just trying to make, preseason games as fun as they can be. Mm-hmm. And I fully expect this guy to play. But Alexander Mattison is a Raider.
That's true. That is true.
Alexander Mattison scored his first National Football League touchdown against the Raiders, following following an Irv Smith block right up the middle.
Irv Smith made a block,
and now he's coming back. After they basically asked him to leave, and so you got Madison, you got Amir Abdullah, Janaris Robinson, the Florida State kids on their team, and of course Daniel Carlson.
Yeah, it's going to be fun just seeing how the Vikings try to plan for that game. I mean, I feel like every week we play against somebody, we're playing against a former Vikings team. Fast forward a week from the Las Vegas Raiders game, we're playing against the Cleveland Browns. They got Dalvin Tomlinson, Jordan Hicks. So
Zadarius Thomas, Zadarius Smith,
Zadarius Smith also. I mean, it's going to be a family reunion, not only at some of those joint practices, but in these preseason games. So I'm excited to see it. It's that time of the year where when you said 8 days away from the first preseason game, I'm
pretty
like,
cool.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Football is actually here. So I'm excited to finally get to next week where we can actually start to talk about a different opponent outside of the Vikings.
Yeah, running against ourselves a lot, no doubt.
I'm sure the guys are tired of that.
Yeah. I want to know what you think of what you've seen from Sam Darnold so far. We've been, social media is just filled with J.J. McCarthy. Yeah. It's almost like Sam Darnold's not even on radar, and nobody cares. And I'm not seeing any of the clips, and this is my first time down here to TCO. So get me up to speed on what we've seen from Sam through, whatever it's been, 5-6 days.
Yeah, I've liked what I've seen from Sam. I know Kevin O'Connell said yesterday, earlier this week, talking about how Sam Darnold, even if he has a bad play, he flushes it and fixes it the next play. And he's already on to getting that next rep. And from what I've seen, the biggest thing that stands out to me is what he does when a play breaks down. Of course, in practice, if a player gets in your face, you're not supposed to, say you're sacked or throw the ball away. Like, Sam is actually extending the play with his legs, actually looking down the field, seeing who's open, because that might be a game-like situation. He may break a tackle in the pocket and have to look downfield. So I've been thoroughly impressed with Sam. I think from what Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said, what we were getting with Sam when he was signed this offseason, I've seen that and more. So it's exciting. Of course, all the noise goes to J.J. McCarthy, 10th overall pick. Yeah. When is he actually going to play? But I do believe Sam Darnold is doing a great job of being the guy when his number is called.
If you can, and this is probably a dumb question because it's not as if I know how you've been analyzing it when JJ's in there versus Darnold. Yeah. I know that they've been trying to implement JJ into some first-team reps, which is super cool, and that's part of the progression, right? But have you noticed that, you know, is Darnold working with a more advanced set of tools, or is JJ just making those one-read throws? Have you noticed anything different in terms of how they're being deployed when they get their reps, or are we both just seeing them working with the same mix?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. It's weird because, you know, every single day the playbook expands more. And so you don't know what plays are being called, but just from my experience of playing, you know, college ball, like usually the first team and second team, they get similar plays. The first team always gets a few extra more. So that, you know, gives Sam a little bit more opportunities to be able to go through a second and third and fourth progression and actually learn from it, get back up on the third play and go from there. But still, I believe that both of those guys have been able to make plays on the go, and they've been given a lot of opportunities to do so.
Yeah, there's been some McCarthyism out there. There's been some propaganda being floating around about what you see on videos ultimately, but it still seems like everything just KOC's got an idea with this thing, and he's sticking to it.
There's a plan in place, and clearly KOC, whatever he has said, we've seen that on the field. And whether, you know, the big thing right now that fans are doing are, you know, posting videos of this and that. And the videos that they don't post, some of the reads that people don't see in those certain plays, like, I think that's what's going to be that's what it's going to take for us to find out who's actually going to be the starter come week one. And I think, like I said, J.J. McCarthy, I thought last Saturday was his best practice, and then he put together another really good day with pads the other day. But you look at Sam Darnold, and it's like, man, this guy's just been consistent day in and day out. So it'll be interesting to see how Kevin O'Connell figures out, you know, the reps moving forward. But I do think, you know, as we move forward to preseason games and joint practices, that's when we'll finally get an opportunity to see, like, all right, what are these guys? What is this entire team made of?
Yeah.
For all of the attention that JJ's gotten, our other first-round pick, Dallas Turner, has not generated a lot of a lot of noise yet. What have you gleaned so far?
And pads have just gone on.
Yep.
Yeah. So therefore the narrative, you know, behind the scenes, and I think, you know, publicly, certainly with 9 to noon, has been when pads go on, it may take a second, you know, because he's young. He's 20. I think he's 21. But that's where the rubber kind of meets the road for Dallas, right?
Yeah, and for Dallas, just being as young as he is, like, he's learning on the fly. I think there's only been 2 or 3 days of padded practices, so we've only had 2 or 3 days to actually see him in action. And granted, when you're going against the best left tackle in the league, it's going to be tough. But still, it's those moments that after those one-on-ones or after the 11-on-11 periods when he's pulling Christian Darris off to the side and saying, like, hey, I'm not sure what he's asking. Sure. But you can tell he's, like, very inquisitive, or he's inquiring, like, dude, how can I beat you? Or, like, how can I get better at this pass rushing? If you look at Dallas Turner, if you walk beside him, it's like, dude, this guy looks the part. When you look at just him get up the field, it's like, all right, this guy's explosive. How Kevin O'Connell, how Brian Flores uses him, that'll be interesting. I've said, you know, just from a personal standpoint, it wouldn't surprise me if he's like the Micah Parsons of this defense. He can do so many different things. He can line up inside. He can line up outside. He can rush
both sides of the field.
He's a diamond in the rough, and he's a guy that I think is going to be a big time player for this Minnesota Vikings team.
Is there anything that stood out to you? I mean, Dallas Turner, let's get these pads on, let's get some hits going, and let's light up the field. From the secondary, that's kind of been one of the biggest talkers, but by way of tragedy, by way of injury. It's put this team in a spot. Fabian Moreau, just basically, he's got his luggage like at his locker, and he goes out and plays. And I think he was even making some reps with the first team. And then I hear several members of the secondary kind of talking, rooms coming together, and it's and we're moving forward, and that's kind of the mindset and mentality you have to have. But has anybody actually stood out to you from the standpoint of this guy gets it, this guy's seizing an opportunity, year 3 for whoever, and he's handling business? Anybody pop in your head right away?
Byron Murphy has been the biggest, I guess, the biggest highlight for me in this secondary. Just his quickness, his explosiveness, how he's playing the ball. You can tell the game is slowed down to him. I know he did an interview the other day talking about how the game is slowed down and just building this DB room up and having to come together due to tragedy, both and an unfortunate fatality, and then moving to the football side just with Mekhi Blackman tearing his ACL. But when you look at just Byron Murphy, his work this offseason, his work during training camp, I mean, he's asking him to go against Justin Jefferson every play. When JJ's not in there, he's asking to go against Jordan Addison. And, it's big on big when you do one-on-ones. But at the same time, Byron Murphy isn't shying away from that. And when he has an opportunity to make a play on the ball, in my opinion, from what I've seen, he's done that consistently. So I'm excited to see how that translates once these games start to matter.
Cornerback's the spot that worries me the most. And some of it are things that are out of our control. We've lost two people that we thought could be contributors this year. And it just, this is, if I look at one thing that I go, okay, we need somebody to really pop in this position. Cornerback's the one. We need one of these young guys. Maybe it's Andrew Booth. Maybe it's a Caleb Evans. We need somebody to make a big step forward.
I got one.
Who you got?
I'm going to try to hint you along.
Okay.
Slender.
Okay.
Undrafted.
Height. Give me height.
Knows Durante Jones, DB's coach.
The Duke?
Initials, his nickname, I believe, is Nudie. If you look at his Twitter.
Okay.
Initials DM.
Dwight McGlothern.
Yes.
I don't know who that is.
I'm not.
I believe he played cornerback at Arkansas last year, was a priority undrafted free agent this offseason, and has been a guy that a lot of people were talking about post-draft. Him and Gabriel Murphy were two guys that stood out post-draft, and they were like, how did these two guys slip under the radar? And when you look at Dwight McGlothern, I can't pronounce McGlothern. When you look at him, he's a guy that ultimately has the size, he has the speed, he has the strength. It's just putting it all together.
Might add some bumps in the road along the way and wouldn't be the first.
He's a rookie.
But Durante Jones is the DB's coach. He's going to be a defensive coordinator one day, somewhere, somehow. And McGlothern was with him at LSU. And then he transferred to Arkansas, had 4 picks. And a lot of people thought he'd be drafted. He didn't get drafted, and they offered the olive branch and a pretty fat undrafted check, and here he is, 47 McGlothern. He's an outsider. We'll see what happens.
Well, hold on here. Is Flores and Durante, do they have any experience like in the flea market business or like Antiques Roadshow? Because whether it's Ivan Pace and now Gabriel Murphy, who can basically tie his shoes without bending over, and now McGlothern, we're playing all the hits in the undrafted market. We're getting all the studs out of the UDFAs.
Clearly they know what they're doing. So
shutting me out on water?
Yeah,
I'll cuss you out.
Tom West just peeped his head in. But just thinking about just what those guys have been able to do post-draft, I mean, even Kwesi in his front office, what they've been able to do post-draft, especially when we look at an Ivan Pace who finished in the top 10 of defensive rookies of the year last year as an undrafted free agent. You trust those guys to be able to make the right decisions as the future continues to progress.
Regardless of the names, this just puts a ton of pressure on the front seven then, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, you're thinking about productivity and aggressiveness, and we can look at the fat sack numbers. We've talked about it a couple of times on the show, like who's going to have the most sacks this year, right? Replacing Danielle Hunter, et cetera. And it's good to flesh this out as we get to know some of these new players and the young cats like Turner. but the front seven just has to be as good as and aggressive and as tricky as they were at times. Just regardless of who's in the secondary, this thing just has to be as stout and as ready to rock week 1 against the Giants as it can be.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a homer here, but I really do believe the Vikings have really good depth when it comes to their front seven, especially when you look at just the defensive line. Like Harrison Phillips and Jonathan Bullard both had phenomenal years last year. I tweeted out the other day, Jonah Williams, when the pads came on day 2, he was my biggest highlight. Like, he popped more than anyone.
I've been seeing Jonah Williams steam a little bit.
When is this like? And then
he trucked somebody. It might have been Ed Ingram. I watched him push somebody back 5 yards.
It was Ingram. I saw a video.
Was it Ingram?
I think it was Ingram. Yeah.
And then Jaquelin Roy, a guy that was drafted last year, starting to come into his own. Just so many different weapons that you could sub in. You got depth. You have rotation, and we're not even talking about the pass rushers here. I mean, you still got Patrick Jones, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, and so on and so forth. So I really do believe there is a lot of depth when it comes to that defensive line, both interior and exterior.
Take it a step farther. I mean, the linebacker depth here right now, overall, it's as good as I've ever seen. Now, granted, they're running a 3-4. So, 09-4-3 with Greenway, Lieber, and EJ. I think Kenny Anatolu and some others were backups. 4-3, so you're going to have fewer linebackers. And edge guys count as linebackers. But all those names you mentioned, well, then Blake Cashman, who knows his way around. Ivan Pace Jr., like you mentioned, Gabriel Murphy. There's this cat from Marshall, man, and I've talked about him a lot. I'm probably going to be wrong here. He'll be on the practice squad, but Owen Porter. Every single time I watch, I think he's 57. I watch he's 57.
He's twitchy.
Owen Porter is twitchy and he's fast and he ain't afraid. Which is super key. So you got it's like when things would fall off inside recently. Troy Dye, who's now with the LA Chargers. I like Troy. I hope he has a nice career, but these guys are a lot deeper and a lot better than that.
I think you're starting to see what Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah were saying when they were talking about our process, our way. And in year 3, usually when a front office and a coaching staff finally get to showcase who their identity is, we're starting to see that with the level of talent, not only in the starters, but also with depth. And when it comes to, guys getting banged up year in and year out, we see it every year. When we see that happen throughout the course of this season, you just hope that this depth can continue to step up and push those starters the way they're doing right now in training camp. So I'm excited to see what this will look like. But I'm excited because we don't know. Like, no one really knows what to expect this year from this new look Vikings team. And being at training camp every day, it's like, oh wow, this guy is popping. Oh wow, this guy is showing. And once we finally get to the games that finally matter, hopefully that can translate from what we see right now.
Final segment from TCOPC next.
Join Paul Charchian and the Fantasy Football Weekly crew at Treasure Island in the Full Deck Ballroom on Friday, August 16th from 6 to 9 p.m. for Fantasy Football Training Camp. Live broadcast starts at 6 p.m., followed by the Fantasy Football Deep Dive right after. Great prizes to be had, including a $1,000 grand prize. Plus, everyone in attendance will receive a $10 in free slot play and a $10 dining voucher. I might have to go to this myself. Get the full details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
We thank Max Fuller for guiding the great ship Love Covenant today at FM 100.3 KFAN from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. It's PA in charge with Nordo and Gabe Henderson from Vikings.com and the Vikings Entertainment Network at Gabe A. Henderson via Twitter, if you would be so inclined to follow.
And I got two things that are definitely not veiled fantasy questions. How do you see the running back rotation working out? The presumption is, Aaron Jones has got the history of getting dinged up. Dude's tough. He plays through injury all the time, but he is a relatively slight back in build. And I'm Team Ty Chandler, as you remember from last year. So I want to see him on the field. What do you think this rotation looks like?
I think both of those guys, Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, will complement each other well. Having the opportunity for Aaron Jones to be himself, but also get a break. That's something that he's used to.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what he did in Green Bay. He had A.J. Dillon. He had Williams, who he had an opportunity to.
Jamal
Williams.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 1 year removed from leading the NFL in touchdowns.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams.
With
Detroit,
is crazy.
yeah.
Which is crazy. So I do believe both of those guys will complement each other well. They're both like Swiss Army knives, right? Like they both can pass block. They can run in between gaps. They
Ty's
can
got to work on that pass blocking, assumedly he has.
I mean, he's put on some weight this offseason.
Yeah, I know.
So
Has he?
How about
Okay.
Jalen Naylor? I mean, I'd read like but I saw him the other. I'm like, damn, he put on a lot of muscle.
He's been my favorite player to watch this offseason. Jalen Naylor has been phenomenal. And when you add just him having that resurgence and then Ty Chandler having the opportunity to be the guy with Aaron Jones, the ceiling is the roof. If I'm Michael Jordan, the ceiling is the roof for both of those guys. So
does it matter if they're how different they are as players? Like typically when you see timeshares or running back by committee of any sort, there's the flashier guy that can catch out, the scat back, so to speak. And then you got rough and tumble guy, bowling ball guy. Does that really matter in the construct of this offense? If you're trying to, ultimately Aaron Jones, A-topic, and then Ty Chandler finds his way into the mix in other ways, but I don't really see them being vastly different physical players. Does that matter?
In this offense, I do think you want to find you do want to emphasize to at least both of those guys that like, hey, even though you're elusive, when it comes to 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, like we need you to put your pads down and get this first down. And I think both of those guys can do that. I'm interested to see, if a Dwayne McBride, a running back who was drafted in the 7th round last year, I believe he went to UAB. What does this year look like for him?
He was the antithesis of a Blazer. But he ran for a ton of yards.
Yeah, he did. So, I mean, if he can find opportunities to get in and provide relief, like he's a bruiser when it comes to a back, being able to truck guys over, have balance, be able to use that spin. Just so many different dynamics that all three of those backs can use. I'm not even bringing up Myles Gaskins and Kene Nwangwu, who is a speedster. But when you look at that running back committee, Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, that's who Kevin O'Connell was talked the most about. And I'm excited to see who those other backs will be.
Last one, HOF game last night, which means the new kickoff bit, which means 8 kickoffs, 31 for a long, 25.5 yard line was the average start. And there was one touchback, just from the way it looked to your guy Tommy Townsend being the 12th guy on the field, holding the ball and sprinting off, because if they get past like the 20 and your guy's still on the field, or it's confusing. But the way I put it was the NFL has brought life to a bit that was dead.
I'll give you that, PA. And being that last night was the first time that we saw it, I'm sure all other 30 teams that were watching were like, okay, we're not doing this. We're going to do this. So to see Steve Sims was the returner from the Houston Texans, who I guess he had the longest return of the night. He got it to the 26-yard line, which is 1 yard further than what the touchbacks were last year. I'm excited to see how this thing evolves. Matt Daniels, he talked about it yesterday, just seeing how he's going to have to adjust on the go. I think there's a period where teams can, I guess the NFL can change the rules during a certain time frame. But
up to the season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see,
believe it or not,
what this will look like.
And I still need somebody to tell me when and I can look it up, and I will this weekend, because it has to be in stone, is the bit where it's like the penalty will be assessed on the kickoff and then you go to break?
Yeah.
What the hell is that? What happens then?
That's a great question. Like, do you kick it from the 50?
I don't, I think that might be it.
Okay.
Kicking it from the 50?
Well, because you gain nothing. It's not that the problem isn't that you can't kick it far enough. It's a great question.
It's a high pop fly into the landing zone.
Exactly.
And you might be able to get somebody, Kene Nwangwu, on a pop-up. If you don't block him, he'll get down there as the ball's coming down and potentially catch it. Your ball.
But getting the ball to 50, I don't think necessarily even helps your kicker. Your kicker's been, you've done all this practice to kick off from the 40.
I'm guessing.
You move it. Does it get any better? I don't think it does.
I don't know. I wonder if that landing zone is still in effect. Like the
landing zone's kind of the bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't understand it at first, and then when I learned if you straddle the 20, ball stops right there because it's like a third out of bounds. But I mean, our Alabama guy, has powerful line drive type stuff where there are going to be some worm burners inside the 20. It's going to be interesting, right?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how.
Don't kick it short.
They're very true. How Will Reichert, what personnel this Vikings team uses to, be dominant on the special teams phase of the ball. It'll be exciting.
Nordo, you're here tomorrow on the perch?
Yeah, and Gabe Henderson's going to be with me. Theo Jackson, we're going to talk to Theo. Alec Lewis will kick off with me as well at noon.
And Charge Fantasy Football Weekly begins?
We begin, we go back to our full show with the Saturdays, the 2 hours for year number 30 starts next Saturday. Wow. Of course, the podcasts are there every week, including we'll record today as well. But
you've grown a lot.
Yeah, next Friday.
And Max, before we say goodbye, can we get a hootie who?
Hootie
who! Everybody have a great weekend. That's the Friday Football Feast. Bye.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.